So, what happens when cultures mix, clash, or just get a little spicy?
We grab a hot pot.
Yes, and talk about life, culture,
and all the delicious chaos in between.
Hi, I'm Jenny.
I'm Lillian. And we are
Hot Pot Takes 火锅闲话。
What does Nezha mean to you?
Nezha is a distant person I admire.
Nezha has that round baby fat face.
When I saw this, I was like, oh, what a cute little kid. Nezha, it was actually a shortened transliteration of its original name, Nala Kubara. Daoism, they believe that you don't need to follow rigid rules. You don't need to try really hard.
What kind of role does the investiture of the gods play?
I could say it plays a very fundamental role, but to spill the beans, I hated so much about the.
Among these movies, which one is your favorite? Or you love them equally?
Well, I can't say I love them equally. I definitely have a favorite here. That is the just go watch it.
Today, we are talking about a mythological figure that almost every Chinese person knows. His name has been trending these days thanks to our blockbuster movie. But Nezha is actually a 1600-year-old legend, a boy god who has been reinvented time and again throughout history. But first, when you hear Nezha, Jenny, what's the first image that comes to your mind?
I think this is a really interesting question. The first thing that came to my mind was not actually Nezha's image. It was actually this theme song, a really earworm theme song that I just cannot get it out of my head of. So it hums like this. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. 小哪吒. The last lyric of this song basically went like, our little hero, little Nezha. I think this last lyrics actually summarizes this image Nezha had in me. I think all in all, Nezha did has this very little hero image in my mind, but that's also a very like kid hero image. So if you ask me about the image, then immediately this comes to my mind. So a little kid, maybe 6 or 7-year-old, and always wears two buns tied on his head, and then he always wears this very red cotton or satin handkerchief-sized cloth around his round little belly. And then also he always carries with him like magical weapons with this red flowing sashes, and also the fire-tipped spears, and also this metal hoops that was always on fire. So all this has made Nezha not only an image of hero, but also this fireball of energy. This kind of person that just appears like victorious wherever he went, and also appears very feisty, lively, and energetic. I think this is the image that would immediately pops into my mind.
Yeah, he's like a powerhouse in battle, but also he looks like a very cute, chubby kid, right? There is like striking contrast in his image.
Yeah.
And probably also he's the only child god in Chinese mythology. So why is Nezha portrayed this way?
Yeah, that's really a sharp observation. Indeed, Nezha has been the rare kid deity in Chinese mythological system. Among like the thousands of gods there, Nezha is the only kid god. And I have been wondering about this question for a long time. And I did some research and found out that this actually has everything to do with the origin and also evolution of Nezha, his image in like Chinese mythological system. And as you just mentioned in our opening, that Nezha is actually this 1600-year-old god. So I think it will be really difficult to fully explain this long history of Nezha's development. So I will try to simplify this history and will briefly categorize into 3 periods of time. And first period of Nezha's origin and development is actually, I think, maybe in the early days when Buddhism started to spread in China. Because think of Nezha's name, Nezha. It doesn't sound anything like in Chinese, right?
No, like not very common characters used in names in China, right?
Exactly. It was not a Chinese name, so it was actually a shortened transliteration of its original name, pronounced as Nala Kubara. And obviously, this was a Hindu name. So the origin of Nezha actually comes from Hinduism and goes to Buddhism and then comes to China with the spreading of Buddhism in China. At these early days, Nala Kubara was not actually a well-known god. Well, you know who was the real big deal figure here?
I have no idea. Probably his boss or I don't know, like his brothers or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. His family, like his kins. So his father was actually the real big deal. His father's name was Vasravana. That was his father's Hindu name, Vasravana. And this Vasravana was really a huge deity. Well, he was the guardian king of the north and the chief Yaksa general. Yaksa was one of the deities that guard the Buddha. Yeah, he was like the chief guardian deity to the Buddha.
Okay.
And the scarce text about Nezha at that time actually recorded Nezha as the third son of Vasravana. So naturally, Nezha was categorized by Chinese as one of the members of this Yaksa deities. You know, like these Yaksa deities, they usually took on this really fierce and wrathful looking because they were meant to scare away the evils. They were meant to protect and guard. And
the Buddha, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So at that time, Nezha or this Nala Kubara's look was nothing close to the kid image that we are familiar with today.
Then when did that transformation happen? Like his image becomes cuter over time.
Well, there's a thing I actually missed here. Even though at the earliest days, Nezha's look was not this kid look, but remember, he was recorded as the third son of Vasravana. So there was already this teenage identity, like teenage element in his identity. So that was the very early days. And then the shift, I think, happens gradually. And it's kind of, we could see this gradual shift in this second stage, which I'd like to call it the fusion stage. It was probably around the Tang and Song dynasty. And during this period of time, Buddhism started to merge with the Chinese local Confucianism, Taoism, and the Chinese folklores. Yeah. And luckily, during this time, Nezha started to gain fame still thanks to his dear old father. During this time, the worship towards Nezha's father, that Vasravana, was at its peak. And this devotion, I think it may have something to do with like historical context in that Tang and Song dynasty. You know, like Tang dynasty, it is this period of time where China had lots of wars with its neighboring countries, with its like nomadic tribes to the north, and so many other like different ethnic groups. I think so during time of wars, as this powerful god that protect and guard, there was a reason for this kind of god to gain like fame, to gain popularity among the
respect.
Yeah, right. So I think that
makes sense.
That perhaps is the reason. And so this devotion toward Vasravana was at its peak. And then this devotion merged with another popular folk belief that centered around Li Jing. Li Jing was also a very legendary general from the Tang dynasty. So through this fusion, you could call it a marriage or whatsoever. Through this fusion, Nezha acquired a Chinese surname, Li. So Nezha became Nezha Li at this time. You see the change here, like in the name, from first Nala Kubara to then Nezha and now to Nezha Li.
And his father is now Li Jing.
Yeah, exactly. And also he had this Chinese father here.
Okay, so it's like he was adopted into a Chinese family as his father's identity evolved. And I guess this probably made it easier for future adaptations of his story because he becomes a part of Chinese mythology.
Yeah, exactly. I think you used a very smart analogy here. He was adopted into a Chinese family. I think that was exactly the story happening around this time. So Nezha at this time, through this adoption into the big Chinese mythological system or family, Nezha was not an exotic foreign deity anymore. So now he was a very like local Chinese god. And now he has acquired this new identity. So he was Nezha Li and he was the third son of General Li Jing. And interesting thing happens with this identity change. So his image started to shift. He was started to be depicted as a much younger figure with a very softer facial features.
So we got a picture of a Dunhuang mural here, and it's almost from that period. But if you look at it, he still looks, with tender facial expressions, right? Also very tall, strong. Definitely not the cute kid we see in later versions. So I just wondering what happened to him next and why his image has changed so much.
Yeah, exactly. From the image that we looked into, that image probably was during the Song dynasty on the Dunhuang mirror. Nezha started to look younger with softer features, but it was still like very distant from like this round, chubby kid god that we are familiar with today. I think yeah, so the next stage would be the defining stage of Nezha's image. His visuals. So the next stage was probably during the Ming Dynasty. I think Ming Dynasty is a very wonderful era of time because it was a golden age for Chinese novels, place to flourish. And actually, during this period of time, there were these two iconic works that played a huge role, a monumental role in shaping Nezha's image. So it was Journey to the West. We're probably very familiar with this. And then the other one was The Investiture of the Gods. So in both of these books, the authors has portrayed in detail Nezha's looks. So he was described as a 总角儿童, meaning a young boy with his hair tied in two buns. And in ancient times, a young boy with his hair tied in two buns would normally age 6 or 7-year old. And also in these two books, Nezha's facial features were described as 玉面娇容, meaning he had a very delicate jade-like face. So these two descriptions actually cemented Nezha's image as the child deity that we are familiar with today.
Okay, but I was wondering why do these two books, both of them, give Nezha this kind of appearance? Is it like affected by religions or anything like that? We have talked about its origin and the fusion stage, and they are both influenced by Taoism and the spread of Buddhism, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think you've raised a critical question here. Why these two books unanimously gave Nezha this look? And you've guessed the reasons very correctly. It all ties back to the influence of Chinese local cultures. And to put more specifically, there was the influence of Confucianism, and also there was the influence of Taoism. First, let us talk about Confucianism. So you could basically imagine Confucianism as this social guidebook. It believes society functions best when everyone fulfills their duties, fulfills their roles. So it dictates that a king protects his people and then the subject honor their king and the ruler. So a father is supposed to guide and protect. Then a son obeys and respects the father. So in order for this Confucianism system doctrines to work, like key in here is actually benevolence, or we could call it compassion, or we could call it kindness. And in Confucianism, there's this highly regard, like the highest form of morality is this, the ideal person of this Confucianism is called a 君子, meaning a noble one. And here's the interesting thing. So a 君子, the noble one, is often compared in China to
jade, right?
Yeah, exactly, to jade. So because this kind of precious stones, they have this very polished yet very gentle, very determined these qualities. So it's not surprised that like Chinese gods are often compared to God, and the Chinese gods often reflect this very gentle, softer, and refined aesthetics, just like the jade in China. And
I mean, jade is very different from diamond. You know the difference? Diamond is like very dazzling, but jade is more gentle, like staying low key, kind of like that. And I think traditional Chinese culture definitely prefers jade.
Yeah, exactly. So jade, it has this very gentle, very rounded feature, and also it's kind of reserved. It's not like dazzling your eyes. It's not glittering. It's not shiny.
Like harsh.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, like in traditional Chinese culture, jade is definitely preferred much more than diamond.
Yeah.
And speaking of the influence, so there was one influence from the Confucianism, and then another one is Daoism. And Daoism is just as ancient as Confucianism, but with a very different vibe. So Daoism revolves around Dao, or you could say the way. So it is this natural force that flows through everything in the universe. So instead of like the rigid rules, like everyone should perform their duties, perform their roles in their positions, Daoism, they believe that you don't need to follow rigid rules. You don't need to perform really hard, try really hard.
You just go with the flow, right?
Exactly. Go with flow, or we could call it wu wei. It is translated as effortless action.
Yeah.
So it's exactly about going with the flow, like follow the natural path, like water shaping itself into the land. And now here is the fun part. So who manifests the ultimate doctrine of this kind of naturalness? So kids are actually the ultimate embodiment of this, right? Because kids, they are not burdened by anything. They're not bound by any rules. So kids are just as pure as water. They are wild sometimes, and they represent this raw, untamed energy, just as the Daoism champions. So, and I think Daoism influence brings this kind of kid image element to Nezha. And
so
now
they are like combined.
Yeah, exactly. So you mix this Confucianism with reference for jade-like virtues, with the Stoicism celebration of childlike spontaneity, voila, and you got Nezha, like a divine kid with twin bangs. That was a really kid feature, and then a face like polished jade.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Interesting to learn that. But I have also heard that many elements of Nezha's story come from the investitures of the god. Is that true?
Yeah. The investiture of God was undisputedly the foundational book of Nezha's stories. It included all the key elements that we are familiar with. For example, Nezha was introduced as the incarnation of Lin Zhuzi, the spiritual pearl in this book. And Nezha had this very tense relationship with his father. Nezha clashed with the dragon clan, and also Nezha's classic reborn or rebirth through a lotus flower. So all these very classic elements came from this book,
and
The
also,
Investiture of the Gods.
Like they are adapted into later movies, like The Spiritual Pearl.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you noticed that I called this final stage the defining stage, but I have to admit that I wrestled many times with like how to name a stage, and I indeed put this name like the defining stage here, but I really like deep in my heart, I really don't want to call this stage the defining stage.
Oh, how come? What happened?
Well, it's mainly because of this book. I mean, that's just my personal feelings here. In the beginning, I thought, oh, maybe this period would be better called the defining period because it has this book, The Investiture of God, and also this book kind of defined the storylines, the key storylines of Nezha's story. But after read the book, I just don't think it made sense. I think there are two reasons. For one thing, the later adaptations of Nezha's story all followed this kind of framework in the Investiture of Gods. But here is the thing. These later creators, these later authors or directors, movie directors, they all gave Nezha entirely different like motivations, different personalities, different way of doing things. So they basically reshaped Nezha's story into entirely different narratives. So to me, Nezha was not a never-changing god. Nezha was more like a vessel or a creative a medium. Do you get it?
So yeah, I know where you're coming from. Like he is a complex figure that can be defined by a single source, you mean?
Exactly. So he cannot just be pinned down to a single definition. So each era or each creator, they brings their own interpretations, their own reflections into this Nezha. Then they reinterpret this Nezha's spirit time and again throughout this history. So I think that's one of the reasons that I don't want to say, oh, there is this defining period of Nezha because Nezha just cannot be defined. So that's one of the reasons.
Still, what kind of role does this book, The Investiture of the Gods, play in the development of Nezha's story? I mean, what kind of image does it portray?
Well, I could say it plays a very fundamental role because it gave Nezha the age, it gave Nezha the image that we are familiar with. It also gave Nezha's storyline like key episodes, Nezha's key experiences, but this person in this book was not very likable. I mean, I hated so much to spill the beans. I hated so much about the Nezha here. Well, it all goes back to like what kind of person Nezha was in this book. So in this book, Nezha had this very incredibly noble origin. He was the incarnation of the spiritual pearl. He was the third son of General Li Jing, and then he was the proud student of this immortal Tai Yi Zhenren. So basically, he was the kind of, oh, I've got it all boy. Well, you know how like we mentioned that if someone was born with a silver spoon, I think Nezha was born with a divine spoon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now, if we like think of Nezha's personality, we all think, oh, Nezha is this very like
rude, probably reckless.
Yeah, rude and reckless, and sometimes maybe rebellious kid. But Nezha in this book was far worse than that. So he was the kind.
How bad was
he? He was the well. Here it comes. How terrible person he was. He was this kind of person who believed my divine origin prevails over everything else. So I can do anything my way. So he believed himself to be above every other person. He believed himself to be the heavenly chosen one. So he was not the person to be taken lightly. But on the other hand, he treated others as if they were worthless creatures, as if they were bugs that could be easily crushed.
That's terrible. I mean, he's like a giant trust fund baby, like someone who gets this celestial backstage pass. And also, he reminds me of Draco Malfoy. Do you know Draco
Wow,
Malfoy?
yeah.
He was always boasting, do you know who my dad is? My dad is this, my dad is that, blah, blah, blah. But I guess like Neja's behavior, based on what you have said, was way more irritating, like much worse than Draco Malfoy's, right?
Exactly. Wow. So Nezha, if he was one of your friend, he just wouldn't let you forget his like noble origin. He was like this peacock strutting, like with a golden name tag on his shoulder. Every time he would like come in and announce that, oh, I am Nezha, the third heir to General Li Jing, or I am Nezha, the mighty incarnation of the spiritual pearl. And you know what? Indeed, Nezha was far more irritating and formidable or horrible because here is the thing. Nezha wasn't just as arrogant as Draco Malfoy. Well, he was far more horrible because he killed. I mean, he killed on a whim. So I remember like when I read the beginning 4 chapters in this book where Nezha was introduced in this book and his in this 4 chapters he killed probably 5 or 6 people.
Wow,
And
that's
one time
terrible.
exactly like so many in just 4 chapters. And so the first time he killed because this other person was not being respectful to him. And then there was another time he killed because he just felt like it. He just felt like, oh, I should probably kill this person. So this was Nezha in this book, in this Investor of God.
This makes him seem like a total jerk. I mean, like doing bad things for no reason.
Exactly.
But it's weird because you said Confucianism and Taoism reshaped Neja's image. But why does he act like a bully in this book? That doesn't seem to match the noble Confucian ideal at all.
No, not at all.
So what happened?
I think it's all comes back to the author's worldview. You just cannot deny it that every book reflects its author's viewpoint, its author's lens of seeing the world, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So I think this author of this book, he captured like only the surface level toppings of Confucianism and Taoism, but not any essence of it.
Right.
And I think one thing I was happy that this book was never classified as the 4 great classic novels in Chinese history, right?
Yeah, I mean, like it's fundamentally flawed.
Yeah, I think this book indeed has something that's really marvelous and amazing because it includes all the mythological figures from Taoism, from like Buddhism, like from local folklores. It like this fantasy novel of gods, of weapons, of spells. I think it's kind of like Harry Potter, but also with a skewed worldview. Anyway. So, well, here's a fun backstory. Like when I was reading this book, I remembered it was about midnight. So I was thinking, okay, after reading this book, I could fall asleep, just sound and peace. But after I read this book, I was totally pissed and I stayed restless like for the whole night. Because you know how I always like, had this admiration for Nezha. But this book, it completely shattered my rose-tinted glasses for Nezha.
I totally get it. It's like you have a soft spot for Nezha. And after reading this book, it's like finding out your favorite celebrity is nothing like who you thought they were. So you must have been very pissed off, disappointed, and also like angry. I don't know, like frustrated.
Yeah. I mean, you got my mindset exactly on point. So, yeah, so I was so let down that it felt like, okay, I could never see Nezha the way I used to see him.
It's this author's fault. Anyway. So, yeah, I know that Nezha holds a really glorious image in your mind. So how did you so how did you see him?
I think Nezha to me is supposed to be like hero, but not like the I saved the world kind of hero. So Nezha, his image in my mind before being a hero, he is a person, just an everyday person, meaning that he's not perfect. He has his shortcomings. For example, he's immature, he's hot-tempered, he's reckless, and sometimes he's like just unreasonably stubborn. But here's one thing that I just appreciated so much about Nezha is that he is a person that doesn't bend. He doesn't bend to the grown-up world's definition, this unspoken rules, unspoken definition of right or wrongs. So I think Nezha to me is this kind of person who steadfastly stands on his position, and he steadfastly protects what he believes is good, kind, and true. So all in all, Nezha is that rare figure who could stay true to himself in the world of chaos, in the world of injustice, in the world of skewed right or wrongs. And yes, Nezha is a rebel, but I don't think he rebels for the sake of rebellion. He rebels because he refuses to compromise his values. So this was the glorious image that I used to have for Nezha. And now it kind of has like features in them already because of that book.
But I mean, what if he was wrong? The boundary between right and wrong sometimes can be blurry, and there are gray areas, right? So in that case, sticking to your own values might just come off as being headstrong. So even though Nezha is a god, he can't always be right, I guess.
Yeah, I think you've raised a really good point, and it is worth discussing about. I think, yes, Nezha might be wrong, and Nezha for sure could have been like headstrong person that just took on a wrong position. So that's why I personally hated putting Nezha on this holy pedestal. I think any act that tries to holify a Nezha will just strip away the nuanced humanity that makes Nezha so compelling to me. So I think Nezha is this kind of person that could make mistakes. And I also couldn't agree more that the world is full of ambiguity. So right and wrongs can be blurry because you know how people like humans, we all come from different background, we come from different cultures, we have different experiences, and we just have different perspectives. It is really crucial just to examine this diverse and multiple viewpoints. I think it is also one of our intentions to do this podcast and to name it the hot pot takes, right? I think, yes, you've raised the key issue here. Sometimes right and wrongs can be blurry. And so that's why we need to look at multiple perspectives. But here's what I believe remains also true. Despite our diverse background, diverse cultures, diverse languages, lifestyles, humans are not that different when it comes to what we cherish and when it comes to what we believe to be good, to be beautiful, to be kind, and to be true. So the Nezha I really appreciate or I really admire is one who protects these universal values that we humans all hold dear. Yeah.
So you think, like in terms of this common moral values, Nezha is a real model that deserves worship, deserves respect, right?
I don't think he deserves like worship. Yes, he deserves respect, but maybe we just need to look at him as a everyday person that could make mistakes, that could piss you off sometimes, that could maybe sometimes just be really reckless. And the other hand, the boldness in him, like the courage in him and the steadfastness in him to stay true to himself, that's something I really admire. And that's one of the reasons maybe I personally glorify this specific quality in Nezha. Maybe I should give up glorifying him too.
I've got a question. Like, what does Nezha mean to you? Like, is he a friend or someone that more like a tutor or someone that inspire you?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question. I think Nezha is like a distant person, not a friend, but a distant person that I know, that I admire, that I want to become a person like Nezha. But the reality is, well, sometimes I just don't have the courage like Nezha. So I'm like the person that just look at Nezha from a distance far away and stealthily respect him and stealthily look up to him and, of course, find inspirations in him.
Someone you feel connected to, like emotionally. And
Yeah.
also, you hope you can learn from him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Then how did you come to see him this way? What shaped his image?
I think that's because of all the adaptations, like the cartoon series or the movies or the TV series I've watched. Like among them, the two most influential ones are the 1979 movie called 哪吒闹海, or poorly translated as 哪吒 conquers the Dragon King. But it was a classic movie. I mean, it was really remarkable. And then there was the latest Nezha franchise. First franchise released in 2019, and then the latter just this year.
So among these movies, which one is your favorite? Or do you have a favorite one? Or you love them equally?
Well, I can't say I love them equally. That would be against. I definitely have a favorite here. That is the 1979 movie. I mean, it was rendered speechless after I saw this movie. Like, I could go right away into a movie rating site, just rate it 5 points or 10 stars with a simple review. Just go watch it. That was my immediate reaction to the movie. I've never seen a
highly recommended. Right?
Yeah, highly, strongly recommended. I've never seen a movie so delicately beautiful like it and so heart-wrenching. I mean, it was brutal, but it was also awakening. I mean, in a good way.
That makes me curious, and I would definitely check it out.
Yeah, I think we will maybe spend some time talking about this movie, talking about how Nezha was portrayed on what kind of person Nezha was in this movie. And I've just mentioned how like beautiful. I mean, the beauty is a huge part in this movie. I think maybe we two could just watch a few clips live together and we do some reactions. And then we could let our audience to just get a brief feeling of what this movie was like.
Why not? Yeah, that's
okay. Before we watch some clips of this movie, I really want to talk about the beauty of the aesthetics of this movie. Well, this whole movie, it actually adopted this style of 水墨画, which is the ink wash painting. So the treatment, the proportion, the color used in this movie was just effortless and deeply poetic. Artistic. We actually put a screenshot of the movie into our show notes. It portrayed the hometown Chentang Pass of Nezha, and our audience could get a glimpse into the style of this ink wash painting. And now let's just watch one of the clips of this Nezha movie. Hey! So this scene is where Nezha played with his weapons, the flowing sashes I've mentioned, and the metal hoops I've mentioned. So when you talk about someone playing with his weapons, one might expect this scene full of force, full of tension, all this dramatic combat scenes. But here Nezha is moving like a gymnast, and he was so graceful and fluid in his movement. And I think what really brings Nezha to life is how he interacts with his butler there. So you could feel the love between them. And also you get this sense of pure innocence, this sense of love and sense of playfulness from this little Nezha.
Yeah, he immediately reminds me of 年画娃娃, like those joyful, chubby kids we see in traditional Chinese New Year paintings. Naja has that round baby fat face and adorable little Chris in his arms and legs, and he's even bare bottom, wearing only a red belly wrap. He is so cute. I even want to pinch his cheek.
Yeah. Exactly. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, what a cute little kid. I mean, you are really sharp about the little wrinkles, the little creases around his arms and legs. That was exactly a plump, a chubby, like a baby fat kid, like in traditional Chinese paintings, the 年画娃娃.
Yeah.
And so this was
like also he played like a very talented
Yeah, exactly. So talented, playful kid, full of life. So this was the beginning of the film was. And then through the latter part of the film, there was a very classic scene where Nezha was reborn through the lotus flowers. This scene was really magical.
Glorious.
Yeah, captivating to watch. So let's watch it together. So here in this scene, well, you could hear the background music. It's really purifying. It's really had this sense of divineness in it, spirituality in it. And then in the scene, you could see the holy water pours down as the celestial mist swirls. And lotus flowers just bloom petal by petal. And in between these petals, Nezha gradually materializes, and his body forming through the lotus. First leaves, then roots, until he emerges fully from the drifting mist into physical form. And here, what captivates me most was Nezha's movements. Like the moment he came to life, he extended his body. I mean, that was just a perfect fusion of Yugi master, right? I see here a Yugi master, a ballerina here. I see an Olympic diver here. I mean, it's just utterly mesmerizing and awe-inspiring to watch this clip here.
Yeah, as you said, I like the yogi part too. It really reminds me of that opening yoga gesture, like you sitting cross-legged, hands resting on your knees, and there's this calm, grounded energy to it, right?
Yeah.
So when you said the yogi master, I immediately got this. And then aside from those moves, what really got me was his facial expression. It sounds a little bit weird, but I like that calm, peaceful vibe in him, which you often see in Buddha statues. Like his eyes remain gently closed, a subtle smile rests on this faint, peaceful curve at the corners of his mouth. It felt really spiritual in a quiet way, especially together with the background music. So you immediately got this peaceful.
Yeah, exactly. You just captured the detail really on point here. I think, yeah, so this faint, peaceful curve you mentioned at the corners of his mouth, that just makes the scene more serene, more spiritual, as you mentioned. I think it reminds me of the sculptures I just went and watched, like in these recent days. I visited this ancient capital, maybe 1500 years back in Chinese history. And then I saw many sculptures. They all had this very faint, peaceful curve at the corners of their mouth. This detail just make you feel like the spirituality, the calmness, the serenity in these deities. Yeah.
Yeah, and like it's a callback to the origin of Nezha. He was brought into China together with Buddhism, and he is a deity. So all this music, this smiles, this peaceful gesture is a very nice callback to his origin.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really a beautiful callback into Nezha's origin. And also, you've just mentioned music. I think, yes, music is definitely a critical part in this movie. And the music just make this movie more remarkable. And actually, I was immediately drawn to this film. Like in the first 10 seconds, I was immediately drawn because of the music. If I remember correctly, the opening music of this movie was the sound of 青铜编钟, this bronze chime bells. It is a very ancient Chinese musical instrument that dates back to maybe 3,000 years back.
Yeah, exactly. 3,000 years old. I actually did some research on bronze chime bells and found something really interesting. You know the Zhenhouyi chime bells, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are the most iconic bronze bells in China. And the opening music is actually a recording of these bells. And the more interesting thing is that these chime bells has only been played 3 times ever.
Oh.
They are in 1978, 1979, and the latest one was in 1979.
1979?
No, I mean 1997.
Oh, that's right. Uh-huh.
These bells were unearthed in 1978 and tested for sound right after their discovery. And since this movie was made around that time, so the director used a recording from that sound test as the opening music for this film. So this was a very smart move, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is very smart. And also it is very, like how China said that 缘分. So it's really a lovely coincidence here, right?
Yeah. And there's another coincidence actually, because these chime bells date back to around 3,000 years ago, and it's almost the same time Nezha's story takes place. So, like when the bells ring, it creates this powerful echo that feels really ancient and timeless. Like immediately hooked you up, I guess.
Yeah, that was my feeling when I heard the music. It immediately hooked me up to the movie. Well, this music, the sound of the chime bells, they're not very sophisticated. They're not very
that's how I felt
complex
too.
or like very grand sound. They're on the opposite, very simple, but they get this profoundness in them, historical weight in them. So that immediately plunged me back into that ancient era.
Yeah, they also like immerse you the cultural richness of the film.
Yeah. And also, I think the music director here was really a genius because he used a combination of musical instruments from the West and the East. So he used symphony orchestras and also many traditional Chinese music instruments. For example, he used pipa to add dramatic tensions. And he used the drums and gongs to create this excitement of battle scenes. And another classic music instrument he adopted in this film was erhu, to evoke this sense of sorrow in the audience. And I think the mixed adoption of this music instruments just helps the storytelling and just help set up the mood of this movie.
Today, we have explored the origins and evolution of Nezha in Chinese mythology, as well as the influential novels that shaped his legend. So, what's next?
Well, get ready for even more enchanting tales of Nezha, a fresh, modern, and unique take on his stories about to unfold. Stay tuned.